Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. We got another day, another new attack on Palantir. So we've got a long-winded article here that criticizes the Spanish government and Palantir because of their recent military dealing that came out a while ago for around 16.5 million euros. Now I won't bore you with their intro here and it goes on forever, but like the first half of the article, it is a spewing of their beliefs, essentially that they believe AI has no place in the military or intelligence services, and a billion years later they do get into the Palantir specific portion, which is where I'll start. And do note this is literal propaganda, which makes yesterday's Wall Street Journal article look like a scientific research paper in comparison, just so you know how bad this one is. But either way, we open about Palantir's role in the military usage of artificial intelligence, where they bring up the 16.5 million deal with the Spanish Ministry of Defense to help implement analysis systems and AI-based technologies, and then really be that infrastructure to tie data together. So it seems like a normal paragraph here until we go below and they say it's like a fact that this type of technology reaffirms racial and class prejudice of security forces that uses them since they established prediction and correlations between existing databases. So they're already contradicting themselves here, saying it reinforces the suppression of certain people, but it's based off these databases and data. So in actuality, the decision is not driven by prejudice, but fact of data. Now, let's just try to be fair maybe and give them a lot of leeway here. If your data collection is prejudice and you're excluding data that has a favored class removed, then yeah. But there's no indication of that argument here, at least the start of it. And when confronted with that fact, most folks would then just say that the system's rigged against certain people. So of course the data is going to reflect those certain classes and people have to be more bad than in reality. But now you're going to endlessly argue with the chicken versus the egg, so good luck with that. So already a silly paragraph in my opinion for those using that 1% of their brain just to comprehend this, but a commonly spewed one for those who want to argue against automated systems. Now, if the reality suggested otherwise, you wouldn't have the unfair outcome. Then we've got the classic spy company here with their initial investment by the CIA and their origins helping on the war on terrorism. I get it, tying the invasion of Iraq, even though the main thing was to prevent another 9/11 attack, we already know with the hindsight of the war in Iraq, it was quite a deviation away of actually catching Osama bin Laden and those truly responsible. But either way, Palantir's main role in all of this debacle was still in counterterrorism. And then they want to say people are complaining about Palantir's racist bias, which is getting complaints around the world, but they don't really point to anything specifically. And then we get the cherry on top saying it's expanded because of Donald Trump and Peter Thiel's relationship, and we get all the keywords here for this article target audience to rile up their pitchforks. And they try to make the deportation of illegal immigrants as the worst thing in the world, and maybe you'll be surprised, but I actually personally am pro-immigration to the United States to make it easier and have a growing population of migrants to offset our declining birth rate, which is a long-term growth killer for developed economies. But this is still under the context of legal immigration to the United States. But it's funny that they point the finger that we already know Spain stands on the North African migrants, and sending those folks back or letting them drown. So I guess it's better to get into a pissing contest here. And then we transition to the classic propaganda show out in the UK and how it's so bad there, suggesting how Palantir got the deal in an unsavory manner and looking at the actual help during the pandemic as a bad thing. Well, sorry, you'd rather have a horrible supply chain, more patients dying, and worse health outcomes instead of paying $1 and entering a contract that you just don't have to renew later on if it didn't work for you. But sure, let's pretend that is a logical argument here from them. And then they call the regulation of AI a trap and spew this ideal world of no military artificial intelligence at all. But that's idiotic in any real world and reality, and you get your country attacked or overtaken. For everyone else who lives in reality, you're fine to let China's government just continue refining their technology with nothing to defend yourself or compete with. Sounds like a great plan, right? And then the supposed nail in the coffin is their support for Israel. It's so odd they think that the Israeli response to one of the worst terrorist attacks in modern times is seen as reinforcement as apartheid. Isn't it odd that you stood up against horrible acts in society and you'd at least acknowledge the blatant elephant in the room that a terrorist organization literally slaughtered civilians? Sure, you can argue the extremeness of the response, whatever, but you just offer up this easy narrative for those not thinking that Palantir is just out to get you and reinforce terror throughout the world. Well, I'd say this article is more telling of the author and organization that they'd rather have a fantasy world where everyone is kumbaya until you see what the bad actors actually do without any deterrence. So yeah, this is a long one with many heated opinions here, but had to point out how this article is clearly pointed, especially being spread around as a piece basically to speak bad about Palantir. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.